Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwartner, and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today, we have a special guest, Matt Darrow. He is with an interesting company. How do you pronounce Vivun correctly?
It's Vivun, sharp letters, and funny story, Gerhard, it's actually a Finnish word, so it means lever. And so much of what we do is about giving sales teams leverage, and it was just like this perfect fit.
And you have a hero as well in that mix. How did the hero emerge from the lever?
Vivun, the company, is all about how do we create AI teammates. We do a lot of deep research on making AI really, really good for domain-specific roles. Hero is our flagship product, though, where we apply all those skills, and Hero is the teammate for sales. There's also just this perfect analogy, I think, for what we're doing in the world of selling, and Hero has a very emotional tie to, I feel, what connects with sellers every single day.
What problems does Hero solve for the salesperson?
Hero finally solves the sales execution problem that every team has had over the last 40 and 50 years. Everything that you've invested on or salespeople are having to focus on, it was how do I win more deals faster and bigger deals? And what's so unique about Hero, it's the only AI teammate that actually sells alongside of the rep where selling happens, which is what you and I are doing right now. We're not selling, but we're talking. That is sales. The whole notion of the live conversation with the prospect and the customer, if we can insert and make the rep execute that moment better, everything finally gets solved.
How does that happen? Explain the magic.
It's been fascinating watching our customers adopt this type of technology. So a customer of ours, like an ADP, 7,000 global sellers, 100 different product lines, everybody knows this company. They're very, very bleeding edge to the point where if you get on a sales call with one of their young reps, you'll be joined with an ADP avatar, a literal teammate that is another Zoom box on the call, that when the 23-year-old kid in Missouri doesn't have the depth of knowledge on a very particular sort of payroll law in a municipality, the teammate jumps in and it's part of the dialogue and the conversation, resolves it, and it eliminates the, let me get back to you, let me pull in another resource, and they can get the deals done and moving faster. That's a little sci-fi, and not everybody's ready for that. They're really pushing the envelope. I'll give you the conservative example is a client of ours like a DocuSign, where we help in what's called whisper mode, where it's all discreetly happening to the seller behind the scenes, where the prospect and the customer sort of never knows that AI is part of this equation. That way, the seller gets over-the-shoulder help around how to drive the dialogue forward, how to close the dialogue, key points that they still need to address, and also the thorny questions of when a competitor or when an objection comes up, how do you handle that in the moment so you can keep going and pushing the deal forward with confidence?
What does that look like on the screen? Can you share an example?
In the more like bleeding edge example, it's really simple because it's like another human is there with you. So that one's actually quite straightforward to visualize. On the more conservative example, on the whisper side, think about on sort of next to your Zoom call or on a secondary screen or monitor in our desktop app, there's just a window where the AI is constantly listening in real time and teeing things up for you, and is doing it in a very proactive manner so it doesn't take your attention away for the most important part, which is the conversation with the customer.
When it comes to AI adoption, Matt, a lot of CIOs and sales leaders, they're a little bit, I would say, not necessarily paranoid, but they are concerned that their competitor is further ahead with AI than they are. Is that perception helping AI sales, or does it make it more difficult?
Sales teams operate on paranoia. That's like the critical part of their foundation. But I think it's hurting them because it's kind of paralyzing them. What we see a lot of is if you and I were two different CROs of two different companies, and each of us thinks we're behind the other person, we're going to sit there and wait for the market to kind of tell us, what the winners are doing, and then do that. And I think that's where this paranoia is a little bit unfortunate, where because everybody feels like they're behind, but the reality is that they're not. Everybody's sort of at the same base, and nobody's taking sort of the next steps to push it forward. I feel like a lot of sales leaders are honestly a little bit stuck in what they're trying to do and how they're thinking about experimentation and even adoption of certain technologies.
When you look at all the AI sales solutions that are out there in the aggregate, what would you say is the percentage of pilots that are actually going to be successful?
Getting a meeting on my calendar executing the deal and making the customer successful. I think each three of those parts have very, very different percentages just based on the complexity of the solutions and what's out in the market. I think there's a high degree of success on the bookends, even for ourselves internally, like getting a meeting on the books. We all know phenomenal solutions like Clay that are out there. We all know interesting solutions like Qualified, who was bought by Salesforce.com. All of these things that automate getting smarter on outreach and research and connecting with people. We even just did a pilot that we're going to go into production with a dialer that increased our connect rates from 3% to 19% for our SDRs. So there's a lot of goodness that's happening there that just kind of works. You just sort of figure out what's important to you. Same thing on the back end. There's so many good services and solutions for customer care, support, and success. Those things are kind of bulletproof and they just work now. And I think, again, famously is what you saw happen with Fin and Intercom. And again, it's now part of the Salesforce machine. But those solutions actually work really well. I think the middle zone, the execution zone, that's where we play, which is why I feel so strongly about knowing this data point the most. There's a lot of pilots, not a lot of production. That's how I would put it. And what happened in that zone is either folks thought they could custom build solutions with incumbents. That didn't turn out to work very well for them, as they had hundreds of different custom agents that they were trying to manage for the execution side, or they would roll things out, but it just didn't move the needle. At SaaStr earlier this year, you had Anthropic on stage presenting Claude for Sales. And you're like, oh, this is going to be great. What does it do? It's like, well, Gerhard, you're about to walk into a meeting with Matt. Here's who Matt is, so read about it. And then afterward, we're going to go and record that phone call and keep it for a later date if you have a question about it. You're like, that's not doing what I think sales leaders need, which is they want velocity, they want win rate, they want ramp time reduction, and saving a seller a few hours here and there, that doesn't get them to where they want to be. So I think that middle zone is very much ripe for what's the technology that's going to deliver.
What percentage of your pilots turn into long-term customers?
We haven't done a pilot that hasn't rolled out broadly to production. When it comes to doing a pilot with your actual human reps, the cost is very high for a company if it goes wrong. And not because of it's a cost to the reputation. The cost is you're taking 10, 100, 1,000 quota carrying reps and you're saying, hey, y'all, you just went through enablement to learn all of our new products and services. And now I need to enable you on this other thing that maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And I think that's been the biggest hesitation that we've seen is you actually have to insert yourself to the machinery of revenue of the company, and earning the right to be able to do that is a very high bar to clear. But at least for us, when we clear the bar and we earn the right, we get to move forward.
You said that Claude may be a bigger threat to traditional sales technology than Gong or Salesforce. Tell me more about that. How do you arrive at that conclusion?
I'm not a Salesforce doomer. I know that people like to post for effect of why does this company exist? This is a phenomenal technology company backbone of so many orgs. And you see that where Anthropic is hiring Salesforce developers like gangbusters, right? It's a backbone of their infrastructure. So I want to throw that out there. I'll give you maybe two stories here. One is our own experience, and another one is what you see in the market with what Salesforce is even doing with their headless 360. For us, it's been a couple quarters since I've even logged into Salesforce. And I think that's really interesting because what happens is our agents do the work with the rep and then update the system. And then Claude, through Cowork, gives me a daily and ad hoc summary of all the analysis that I used to kind of go and poke and prod around to be able to do. Even to the extent that my VP of sales, our whole forecast discussion comes out of Claude because it MCPs into our agents and it can give us a lot of robust information and we can have a conversation around. Phenomenal. And then when it comes to other solutions, we were a Gong customer for many years, we just don't find ourselves going to that solution in the UI anymore. But also when it comes to helping our sellers execute a new pricing model, everything is in the rearview mirror for Gong. It doesn't help them do it for the customer. It doesn't understand our products and services. So we've moved away from certain legacy incumbents. And then for the big ticket items like a Salesforce, it's critical to our business. We just interface with it completely differently, which happens honestly a lot through Claude for us. It's a big shift in behavior that's going to go through with a lot of sales reps. And that's why I said headless 360 is interesting because Salesforce is obviously trying to say, wait, hold on, Matt, don't go to Claude to do bad. Come over to Slack to do that. Which right. I quite like that strategy too, but I think that's why it's so interesting.
What you're saying is that Salesforce is the foundation of the business. It's the foundation of a house that keeps everybody solid. And there is one source of truth. There are no data puddles. There's a data lake.
Same thing. Our quote to cash operations ran through there. My CFO would go crazy if I was like, let's just go vibe code something. It's like, hold on a second. All of our approvals and everything is built into this. We need that.
Where do you see the future?
I'm not a believer that companies will be removing their sales organizations in favor of AI avatars and say, you are soup to nuts. This is how I sell now. And I think with the right tools, what will just naturally happen here is that sales reps are going to be able to earn more, better comp plans, better commission rates. And then companies are going to get the best out of this too, where these tools are sort of the Ironman suit for the salesperson, not the replacement for the salesperson. It's just going to stay innately human, and sales is going to be able to keep and carry that forward.